Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the next episode of the Mint Mob podcast. Jason here, joined by my buddy Alex across the pond in Germany. We're going to dive into the usual market stuff and chat about what's going on inside the Goodfellas NFT project. But before we do, let's check in and see how my man is doing. What's going on in Germany, brother?
Everything is great, actually. Unless you look at the market, I'm currently looking at Bitcoin recovering because it has been going below 90K, which I think it hasn't been there for quite some time. Let's see. I think the last time it crossed the 90,000 was like in mid-November, and it held above 90 since then. And yeah, today it visited an 89 for like a couple minutes before going back to 90. And ETH also went below 3,000. And, people think these are like key support lines. And, if that breaks, we will go down to 70, 60. I've even read 50s. But if I basically click on the 1 year time frame or the maximum time frame, it still looks like some regular sideways movement. Sometimes we go up, sometimes we go down. But in the end, everything looks still pretty healthy. And, I always wonder why, people start celebrating when, within that sideways range we have, which is basically between 90 and 110. When prices go up, people, celebrate, cherish the Bitcoin and are like, hey, we are going to the moon. And then it goes down again and everyone is calling it quits and is like, okay, this was it. And it's like crazy to see that happening multiple times, within that short time frame. But yeah, what do you see? You're probably not panicking. I know you're pretty good, I think.
All right. Well, what would I say? let's run the test. What would I say about it?
I could like what I could do right now is basically replaying what you said on Spaces last time, which is basically people like remanaging their portfolios, tax reasons, blah blah blah, and that's why everything happening right now is normal.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. But the bigger part of it right now, after the first, has just been the fact that the central banks have come out in the US and started talking about raising interest rates, which generally points to a stronger dollar, which generally points to stronger dollar-based returns. So if you're an institutional investor and the central bank comes out and says, hey, we're going to raise interest rates, or at least they start hinting at it, what that means is most people will start buying bonds. So they'll pull money out of risky assets and they'll start buying bonds that have this guaranteed sort of return. Because in their mind, it's a safer way, to earn interest on what they've accumulated. And then, of course, in an inflationary environment or in an environment where interest rates are very low and money is free and money is like moving quickly, you want to be in risk assets. And so that confusion has created this doubt in the marketplace about, well, should we buy risky assets like Bitcoin or should we buy more secure, quote unquote, assets like bonds or, government debt? And so that's kind of what you're seeing shuffling back and forth in the US right now. And, again, the key thing that we're looking for, at least the key thing that I'm looking for, is what happens after the inauguration of Trump. So we've got this disaster of an administration finally leaving office, and we've got Trump coming in, making a lot of promises, and a lot of people in the tech world have supported the Trump administration. And of course, that comes with this sort of idea that they're going to start exploring the strategic Bitcoin reserve, which would mean that the government's going to put a floor under Bitcoin in terms of buying, because the supposition, or at least the proposition that they put forth, was that they would purchase anywhere from 500,000 to 1 million Bitcoin. And as you've already seen, as of, I think, yesterday morning or early this morning, MicroStrategy had purchased another $242 million worth of Bitcoin or something like that, which put them at 450,000 Bitcoin. So MicroStrategy holds almost 500,000 Bitcoin. And, I posted a question on X. It's like, hey, is MicroStrategy going to be the first entity to ever own 1 million Bitcoin, which would be a huge, huge accomplishment. And, who knows, maybe they do. But if the government jumps in on that bandwagon and starts buying as well, you're going to see more and more pressure for other people to buy, like large companies and governments as well, who don't want to be left behind, assuming that Bitcoin could potentially be a reserve asset. So, I think that's where the pressure is going to come from. Right now, there's not a lot of buying pressure other than what Saylor's doing. And, we'll see if this plays out. But that's kind of my theory right now that I'm operating on.
I just read that BlackRock says crypto has outpaced growth for mobile phones and the internet. And then I read that BlackRock launches a spot Bitcoin ETF on CBOE Canada. And then the third, basically tweet from Watcha Guru is JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon says Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme that has no intrinsic value. And isn't it crazy? I mean, people out there, if I don't even have to look at the comments to know that people say stuff like he wants a lower entry and blah, blah, blah. But how is that even possible that someone who is basically the CEO of such a big investment company still claiming that Bitcoin has no intrinsic value with, companies or institutions like BlackRock and all the other ETF companies basically buying or investing so much into Bitcoin?
Well, I mean, you have to remember who Jamie Dimon is, right? Like he's the CEO of Chase Bank, right? JP Morgan Chase. And, they have a vested interest in making sure that people stay on the US dollar globally, because the more demand that they have for dollars, obviously the more loans they're going to write, the more transactions they're going to do. And I think the dirty little secret about banking is that the banks make more money on fees and charges and transactions than they ever do in their initial business, which was loaning money at interest, right? So they have every motivation to make sure that people stay on the dollar. And Jamie Dimon, of course, is an extremely wealthy man running one of the largest banking companies in the world. So what incentive does a guy like this have to even look at anything new? I mean, his life is looks pretty good from a financial standpoint. He's not going to hurt either way. So to him, I mean, Bitcoin could make it or not. He's not going to be impacted. His dollars are so great that nothing that happens in crypto is ever going to have an impact on him or his family or his kids' kids or his kids' kids' kids if they manage their money right. So somebody like that, I mean, he has no incentive to look at anything new. And whether he's right or wrong, I don't really think that his opinion should be taken seriously, because, how much research has he really done and how much does he understand the technology? Yeah, I don't really know. I know he understands banking, and I know he understands fractional reserve banking, because that's how these banks make money and steal from people. And as long as they can legally do that, then he has every incentive, like literally every incentive, to keep things the way they are from a personal standpoint anyway.
If you look at the charts, and I know we've been talking a lot about the cycle, and everything moves according to the cycle. We have basically seen 2 previous full cycles. Do you still think you would rely more on fundamentals or on basically technical analysis?
I mean, for me, that's an easy question to answer. I don't put much stock in technical analysis, because generally the way I view that is more if you're a short-term trader or swing trader. If you're looking at long-term trends, really all you need to understand is the fundamentals of what's moving the market. And as long as people feel like the US dollar, for example, is being debased by the government, which it has been, obviously, and horrifically over the last 100 years. And then if you're a country that, put your gold on reserve with the US, and, you made an agreement to take dollars in lieu of, and, you see that your purchasing power on the dollars that you're holding in reserve is being debased, you have every incentive to want to, get into crypto, Bitcoin specifically, as a value preservation mechanism. So I don't feel like the fundamentals are going to change as long as governments are printing money. And as long as that is the case, then I have no doubts that, something like Bitcoin and probably the major altcoins or the feature coins, whatever you want to call them, are inevitable. Bitcoin is for sure inevitable at this point, in my mind. And, maybe ETH, maybe Solana, maybe one or two others like Tether or USDC, because you do need some sort of stable tie to the US dollar, since the world, basically does business in US dollars. But so I don't really place any sort of stock in anything other than where that trend line is pushing us. And I know that if I'm a younger person and I see that I'm working for, 14, 15 bucks an hour at the coffee shop, or I'm working for $50,000, $60,000 a year salary, and I come home and I pay my bills and there's nothing left over because this year my money didn't go as far as it did last year, even though I got a raise, then I'm going to have to look for other options. And honestly, what young person is going to go out and buy gold or buy silver or have enough money to invest in, precious artwork that costs $1 million or $100,000? They don't have that, right? So the easiest thing for them to do, especially since they live life on the phone already, is to start looking at crypto and crypto transactions and how they can preserve their wealth that way. So I don't really see a need to look past the fundamentals at this point. I mean, again, unless you're a trader. And if you're a trader, of course, hey, pull your chart out and start looking at technicals, But the technicals are just indicative of psychology. And for me, I don't need that at this point because my long-range plan includes adoption curves whereby nations around the world and people around the world are just fucking sick to death of being stolen from via inflation. How about you?
What annoys me most about technical analysis is probably that I see it everywhere on X, and people, like you said it, like it's actually just about probabilities. Like if you have that fucking falling wedge there and, the chart breaks on the upper side, it does not necessarily mean that, the coin goes to higher levels or that it goes to some certain point. It's just about the probability that definitely raises. But in the end, if I see people, having or making that technical analysis on 1 million market cap coins, where basically one single whale can, dump the whole chart, just to promote the coin, because usually people do that when they are like, oh, okay, you see that rising wedge here, it's going down, you have to short, blah blah blah. In the end, like anyone could probably buy, I don't know, 10K worth of that coin and change the whole chart. So in the end, you said it, all these formations, Fibonacci's and blah blah blah, they are just representing human psychology, and that only works if you have a certain amount of holders and volume and liquidity. And then you can basically have these support and resistance levels, and all that happens is basically when a support is broken, all of these traders expect the chart to go even lower, and they short, and that's why the chart goes lower. And in the end, as you said, it's just psychology. But the way people use technical analysis on every single fucking coin out there is, it's a shame, man, and it's pretty annoying for me to see.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and the thing about it is too, is like if once it's on the chart, it's already happened, so once it's on the chart, you're basically trying to extrapolate or interpolate what's going to happen next based on what's happened in the past. And, while there's indications that could be right, it is not a one-to-one tie. Like what's happened in the past is not guaranteed to happen in the future. That's not how, that's not how anyone who understands like David Deutsch's, reasoning, for example, thinks. Like the past is not indicative of the future. There might be a day when the sun doesn't rise tomorrow, so at the end of the day, when you're looking at all these things, it's just like you said, it's probabilities and guesswork. And if you just understand the psychology, you can kind of skip over all that. And but if you're chart watching and you're moving money in and out of the market really quickly, then it just comes down to, okay, well, this move happened. How quickly can I respond to that move? that's not a place I want to live. I don't want to sit in front of my computer watching a screen all day. Maybe I train an AI or some sort of bot to do it for me. But at that point, it's just a matter of like picking up a small percentage here, a small percentage there. I'd rather just stay out of the market, skip paying all the fees from going in and out of the market, and just wait. For me, that makes more sense.
Yeah, it perfectly makes sense. Absolutely. But yeah, let's shift away from crypto markets and jump a little bit into the NFT world. And first funny thing I actually saw today, which made me smile at least, was when you're on Magic Eden. I saw. I'm not sure if it's there for a long time or if it's new, but they also have like a category of meme coin NFTs. And the fun thing is, if you click on that section, on that category, the number one meme coin collection is actually the eGods. And haven't heard anything from them recently. Like, do you have any news if they do something, if they build anything? Like, have you seen anything from them?
I haven't seen anything really interesting come from them in forever and a day, honestly. Um, I mean, again, this is one of those plays where, if you're early to market and and you're able to pick up some pieces and sort of ride it out, then you're being rewarded, or you were rewarded with really high floor prices because you had someone initially who was sort of bombastic and mysterious and did all the things necessary to, incite those younger buyers into this idea that, oh, you know what? This thing is going to the moon and blah, 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 blah. And like, so you brought in all the degens. And so, yeah, from a meme coin perspective, DGods is very much about pushing that degen narrative. That's their whole thing. And, from my perspective in holding them, I haven't really seen them do anything interesting in a very long time. Their season 3 drop was the most interesting thing that they did, in my opinion. And then they walked it back because degens complained about the artwork not being good, when in fact the art was the best art they've ever put forth. So, when I look at that, I just kind of shake my head. I'm like, this is ridiculous nonsense that, these guys have taken the time or wasted all this time, going in this one direction where they expressly like dictated to the market, we're moving to ETH, we're going to be more exclusive, we're looking for high-end holders, NFTs are a luxury item, and all this kind of thing. They walked all of that all the way back, moved back to Solana, and then like started embracing the degen nonsense all over again. So they lost me when they did that, because that just basically told me they had no clear direction. So honestly, at this point, I don't really care what they're doing. I hold 3 of them, and I'm just waiting for a high enough floor price to exit, and then I'll never look back again.
But if you look at Frank's timeline right now, I mean, he does post a lot, without saying anything. Actually, every now and then he posts about meme coins and stuff like that. Do you feel like this is some sort of surrender, or like does he actually have a plan?
I don't think he has any plan at this point. I mean, I know that they have a team of decent developers. And, like when you went from ETH to Sol and Sol to ETH, it's not a trivial thing to do to build an interface that allows you to mint on a chain, burn on another chain, and then go back and forth between the two. I mean, you're employing multiple wallets on multiple different types of chains. And, so I know that they're connected with some people who really understand the technology and can do some cool things. But in terms of, like an overarching theme, all I see from them in the, Telegram chats, and what have you is just, did you buy this coin? Did you buy that coin? Did you ape in? Did you degen this? Jeet yet? I mean, all this kind of nonsense, degen nonsense that just drives me crazy. And so I just tune it all out. It's just a bunch of immature people trying to be part of a fraternity, too late in life. It's kind of how I look at it. So, I mean, again, I'm dumping my pieces as soon as I feel like the floor price is where I want it to be. And again, I'm never going to look back.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at Magic Eden and I see, Magic Eden is still like the Solana marketplace for me, because it's been like the OG marketplace on Solana, and I see all these OG projects. Some of them do quite okay, some of them do not really good. Um, I do not see a lot of good stuff coming, like in new stuff. There are some meme NFTs who get like a little hype and then dump after. Um, do you think, like especially considering we have chains like Stargaze and Base and all the other chains, do you think um, Magic Eden is destined to be surpassed by one of these?
Um, do I think that Magic Eden can be surpassed by another marketplace? Is that the question?
Yeah, and especially like Magic Eden obviously operates on many different chains, but if you look at like Stargaze, for example, which seems to be a lot more innovative and, you know, obviously caring more about like what's being published on their marketplace and cares more about art. Think they're a lot more involved in spaces, and when you know you have these drops, they show up, try to help people. I never see that from Magic Eden. So yeah, do you think that this kind of user and customer support is going to bring Magic Eden down at some point?
I don't know. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, Magic Eden has, again, first mover advantage. So unless they really fuck it up, you know, unless they really end up doing some stupid things, they will always be there. And I think that anyone coming up behind them is going to have a really tough time. So, I mean, ultimately, with our focus being primarily on quality artwork, and like a marketplace is primarily focused on transaction fees. Like that's their whole business model. You know, they make millions and millions and millions of dollars every year just on transaction fees in terms of these tokens, right? So for them, they don't care what they put up there so long as they can get away with it or skirt some sort of, you know, indication that it could be nefarious or bad in some way. As long as they can skirt that, they don't really care what you put up there. And so I think the opportunity in the future is exclusivity and like really curating quality projects, not just throwing anything and everything at the wall, you know, to see what sticks and, you know, host it on your marketplace. Because, I mean, honestly, when you go there, you know, on Solana, there's maybe, you know, 4 or 5 projects that I think are doing good things. Of course, Goodfellas, I believe, is one of the best in terms of focusing on quality. But you've got OK Bears with a focus on branding and quality. You've got Foxes with a focus on code and quality. You know, you got to give DeGods credit for being there first and for focusing on their degen sort of roots. That's really their focus. And if that's what you're all about, then you definitely want to hold one of those pieces. But, you know, outside of that, you start getting into these, you know, second, third, fourth tier projects with no money, you know, no real floor prices, no real vision other than just throwing more shit at the wall. You know, metaverse this, metaverse that, all this nonsense that doesn't really need blockchain in the first place. These are the things that are like should be excluded by and large from a marketplace that is curating quality. And I mean, I say that with all due respect because people are like, well, who are you to be a gatekeeper? Well, I'm the one who's basically putting my name on the line saying that, you know, if you buy from me or if you use this particular exchange, that you're going to walk away owning something because you've got IP rights and because we vetted the person that we allowed to create with us, right? If you're not doing that, then ultimately the people that you bring in, you're offering nothing to in the way of assurances. And that's basically where the market has been. So I think the real opportunity is in niche. Like, how do you niche out of this? Well, I think it'd be awesome to have a marketplace that focused highly on high quality artwork, which is kind of where we're going, right? And obviously I'm talking my book, but that's where I think the market goes because it's like Amazon, right? Like Amazon is so big that, you know, if you need something from Amazon, chances are it's there. But if you're looking for something specific that maybe is a smaller brand that, you know, identifies with your values or, you know, maybe does higher quality work and they don't sell on Amazon, now you have an incentive to go to their specific website. But that person's never going to overtake Amazon. It's not going to happen. So I think you've got like this push toward everything getting large when it's general, and non-specific, and then this push toward everything getting small and niched, where there's a push toward the very specific. And if you're looking for specific things, you don't go to a general website. You go to the specialist, right? And then that's what I think is going to happen with NFTs. Like if you're looking for quality NFTs, you're going to have in your mind that if I'm looking for quality, I need to go to a specific website that focuses on that, not MagicEden, where I have to sift through 1,000, piles of shit, basically, to find the one thing that I think is of high quality.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to add is that I don't know if you remember, but MagicEden, I think, wasn't even the first Solana NFT marketplace. I think the first one back then was called Solana Art. And I remember that when I checked my first NFTs, that I was basically going back and forth between Solana Art, MagicEden, and I think the third one was something like Coral Cube or something.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's funny because MagicEden basically overtook Solana Art in late 2021 or early 2022 due to its lower fees. I think their rise was driven by, it's like 0% listing fees and 2% transaction fees, and yet Solana Art is still running today. And it's funny because if you go onto their page, it basically promotes its own page by saying that you can trade NFTs at lowest cost. So they basically reversed it and tried to get back the number one spot. But yeah, I mean, I remember that MagicEden was always like the greatest place for like Solana. OpenSea was like the OG place for Ethereum and everything. And yeah, but I do see the struggle that you just mentioned, that people, like when they just go onto the MagicEden marketplace and they have to click through all that garbage, and they have no idea what, like, because it's more about communities and what's being built behind the JPEGs. If there is like actually a team that is dedicated and engaged in what they do. So I'm not sure, but I feel like Stargaze has been on a pretty good way in terms of building relationships with their with the collections and everything. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe MagicEden did that in the very beginning as well. I have no idea. But yeah, let's see where we go, and let's jump into the Goodfellas for the last couple of minutes as well. So I don't know if all of you guys have noticed it, but staking is live. People should be able. I saw that we had still some discussions about getting your Floppy Labs NFTs out. I think there are no updates yet. I think there is still that big issue with resized NFTs not being able to be unstaked. Yeah, we are in touch with the Floppy Labs guys, and we are still hoping to get an update ASAP. I'm not sure. Have you heard anything back? I'm not sure if you are talking to them on any different channel.
Yeah, for sure. Let me just say this about the whole MagicEden, Solana Art Coral Cube thing. Before we jump into that, and then we'll close this thing out.
I moved on already, man.
Yeah, I know.
No, go ahead.
But I just want to point this out, right? Like we talk about first mover advantage, but there's also this massive advantage when it comes to first mover in terms of massive efforts, right? So even though there may have been platforms that came out before MagicEden, you have to look at where the massive amount of effort and dollars went in terms of development, right? So MagicEden is a US-based company that basically brought on some of the most incredible developers. And if you look at the origin story of their development cycles, they have been the only platform that has really kept pace with the updates and gone multi-chain and continued to work on their interface and continue to build, where a lot of these other chains just kind of stood still. And so if you go and look at Solana Art or whatever, Coral Cube. They look very similar to the early days, but Magic Eden looks nothing like it did from the early days. From the chains across the top to the mobile interface to their new wallet to all these different things. And so it just points to the fact that like you've got the first mover advantage until you stop moving, and these other marketplaces basically stop moving. And it could be because they ran out of money or didn't have any money. Who knows? I'm not really sure Magic Eden's initial investment story. I actually want to look that up now that we're talking about it, but I'm pretty sure they had a fair amount of backing coming in because their development team is top shelf. And I just want to say that, right? You can easily lose the first mover advantage if you stand still. And we were talking about this a little bit with the iPhone and, Apple losing users to Android, but we can come back to that another time. But what was the other thing that you wanted to say? Or staking. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Metaplex is rolling out or has rolled out a file resize process that will actually shrink your NFT metadata. And apparently shrinking the NFT metadata threw off some of the staking companies, one of which was Floppy Labs, which is who we use. And so Floppy Labs has been unable to allow us to unstake. Now you can still claim your rewards. So for those of you guys who have AU pending, go ahead and claim it. You can go ahead and fill your wallets. Because again, we're going to do some token mints coming up in the very near future. But we're unable to unstake those NFTs at present, and we're waiting for their developer to update this. And I've been pushing, just basically annoying the absolute shit out of these guys to get them to move, because you know how it is in Web3. Sometimes people are a little less apt to move on your behalf. But in this case, they're a staking as a service company, so they've got a lot of other projects who are going to be applying pressure as well. And there's a time bomb on this update that Metaplex has pushed out in terms of shrinking NFTs. So at some point, all the NFTs will be resized automatically, and anything that hasn't been resized by you will be resized by Metaplex. And then they, of course, will claim all your rent. So it's a way for them to grab some quick dollars as well. So everything's going to have to be resized. In order for Floppy to stay in business, they're going to have to fix it. Right. So I'm just banking on the fact that they don't want to die. At least I hope they don't want to die, and they're going to get this pushed out. But I don't have a hardcore number on this. The good news is we don't have a ton of NFTs staked with them. So if we have to, we can reissue these to a certain degree, without changing the images. And I don't want to have to do that, but if I have to, I will. So, we're not going to be taken down by this under any circumstances. So no one should worry. But I don't have a hard date on that yet, and I'm going to keep pushing and annoying these guys until they actually get this work done, because again, they made a commitment to the marketplace to provide the service, and we've been paying them diligently to stake and unstake, so they owe us this service, and I'm going to keep pushing on that. So hopefully they rise to the occasion and deliver, but one way or the other, we'll get it fixed.
Yeah, absolutely. And on top of that, Jason and I, we made our plans for this year, and there's definitely a lot of art coming your way. The next drop will be in Ace, actually, on January 21st. And it's going to be great. I mean, if any one of you listening does not have a Mint Pass yet, so definitely request it. The link is on our pinned tweet on X. And one thing I wanted to get your opinion on is, it's like basically going away from NFTs again, but European regulations require that, for example, if you are, I think Coinbase does it already, Binance not yet, but if you basically buy any coin on Coinbase, for example, Solana, and you want to send it to a wallet, you now have to type in the full name of the receiver, like who owns the wallet. Do you think that kind of is bad for crypto, or doesn't matter at all?
So you're saying that if you sent me like 5 Solana, that you have to put in there my name or something? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. If I sent it to you, I would have to like type in like Jason Archer, Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to send this soul.
Oh, okay. Could you just type in there, Kermit the Frog and still send it?
I haven't tried yet, to be honest. And it's like just like I could, of course, like just send it to my Phantom wallet and then send it over to you. That would be anonymous again. But like if I send it from the exchange, I will have to type in the name. And I felt like, imagine I mean I have no idea what they do with that data, but obviously it's for tax reasons. But imagine I buy like, I don't know, 10 grand or 20 grand of Sol over a couple months
Hmm.
and send it to my Phantom wallet and gamble it all and lose it in meme coins or buy some NFTs and whatever. And at some point they ask me to justify what happened to that money because you should have like 50,000 worth of Solana in your wallet. And then you have to justify what you did. And that kind of sucks, kind of like, I mean, it makes sense to some point in terms of, getting your like tax stuff like right. But it takes a lot of like I mean, crypto always felt like that field of where no one is watching and you could do what you want.
Hmm.
But now it definitely feels a little more like you're being controlled and watched.
I get that. And I mean, I think that, there's a lot of people who are, certainly doing their level best to comply with all these ridiculous rules and, nonsense transaction tracking things. I mean, if you're a crypto on ramp, you don't really have a choice, right? Because you're tied to the banking system. So like if you're in Germany, you're tied to whatever the banking system is in Germany. If you're in the US, like Coinbase, you're tied to the US financial system, which means that, there's all these money laundering rules that they have to comply with in order to trade in US dollars, right? But once you're on chain, everything changes. So, I mean, my advice to anyone who doesn't want to be held captive to fiat and all the rest of it is to do your trading on a non-custodial wallet rather than a custodial wallet. And if you, for example, like if you are, watching the markets move and you're trading in a non-custodial wallet, let's say, Solana goes up to 250, for example, and you're sitting on 100 Solana, right? Well, it's not sustainable and it's going to come back down and you're in a non-custodial wallet, you can simply trade into USDC or something that's tied to the US dollar and let it sit there at its current value and watch the price of Sol fall. And then you can turn around and deploy that USDC back into Sol at a lower number and then buy more Solana than you would have had initially with the same amount of money and watch it ride back up, right? So, I mean, if you're a high profile person and you're dealing in the local currency, there's no way around the government sort of, on ramp and off ramp guidelines or tax implications, and nor should you try to circumvent them. You should absolutely comply with whatever laws you're subject to on those on ramps. But once you're in the non-custodial world, everything changes. And unless you're literally tracking every single transaction in a spreadsheet or you've got some software doing it for you, you're not even going to be able to track. So, I mean, for me personally, I'd rather trade non-custodial and then deal with the tax consequences when I come back on the off ramp than to deal with a custodial wallet and deal with all the tax ramifications up front. That's just how I think about it.
Yeah, it perfectly makes sense. I mean, as long as you don't have to tax unrealized gains, but yeah, no financial advice, of course. But yeah, I'm like, for example, I do not hold any dollar on an exchange. But I do get why people do, because it feels a lot easier to handle. Basically people think it's safe. It's obviously not. At least no one can guarantee. But yeah, in the end, the question is whether it's like there are even some suspicious apps where people hold their crypto, and I feel like I'm not even sure if you actually hold the coin or if it's like just a number on the screen. Um, but in the end, holding the asset is probably always going to be the best way. And with these words, I think we can wrap it up here. Or do you have anything very important that you want to say that keeps me away from my food?
No, not at all. I mean, I would just remind everyone to stay calm. You know, the markets are going to move up and down, and that's your opportunity. That's where your opportunity lies, right? The volatility is your friend if you're paying attention, and the cycle isn't over yet. So just relax, take a breath, you know, don't put more into the market than you can afford to lose, and sleep easy at night knowing that, you know, what goes up comes down and what goes down comes back up, and everything will be all right.
Wise words, man. So yeah, we thank everyone for listening again. We look forward to see you guys on Friday Spaces, obviously. And yeah, have an eye on the Discord. We got some announcements that will be dropped this week, and we look forward to everything that comes in 2025. Have a great week, and we'll see you guys. Bye bye.
Take care, guys.